Welcome to Kindle Curiosity, an imperfect podcast about the creative process. I'm your host, Sarah Schatz. I'm an artist, author, academic, and creative coach. This is season 3, and we will be exploring creative ecosystems, which happens to be the topic of my very first book. Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of season 3 of Kindle Curiosity. I'm here with my friend, Kate Laing. Kate, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, yes, I am Kate Laing of Lionheart Canyon Studio. I am a weaver and collage artist and a writer and explorer. So I kind of, like Sarah, I'm investigating a lot of different creative mediums. I live in Omaha, Nebraska right now with my little rescue pup, Sage Biscuit. She's a very good girl. And yeah, I have known Sarah for 6 years over Instagram, and I had the pleasure of meeting her when I was on a road trip several years ago. So I know Sarah both on Instagram and in person, and I am an artist. So
Yes.
yeah.
And both baby Sarah and baby Kate. Kate was actually my very first podcast interview when this whole thing started.
Gosh.
So if you want to listen to us talk a whole lifetime ago, I will put that in the show notes. I think we talk a lot about foraging in that episode. And yeah, that was one of my favorites. So
Yes.
thanks for both being my first then and my first now. I didn't do that intentionally, but things kind of come full circle sometimes.
They really do.
So Kate is one of the few people that has read my book already. So what I want to do this season is really dig into the idea of creative ecosystems. And so with Kate today, we're going to specifically talk about the element of air, which in my book means lived experience. And we'll kind of get into that. But I guess I should introduce the idea of what a creative ecosystem is. And basically, for anybody who hasn't read the book yet, who's not Kate, a creative ecosystem encompasses everything, every condition within which we create. So it's our body, our mind, our lived experience, the things that we read and watch and do, the people around us, our communities, the seasons and cycles, both within us and around us, and yeah, time and space and like everything. So the idea kind of developed for me because my creative process was very much in the hustle, burnout. And after David was born, I couldn't do that. And so I had to restructure a creative process that was more holistic and that was sustainable, and consider parts that I didn't typically consider part of my creative process to be actually supporting my inner artist. And I couldn't decide how to talk about this, but actually Kate is the very first person who read my book because I would send basically like a chapter at a time to her via email. So she's kind of the muse of this book.
Oh.
And I loved like the little encouragements I got along the way. So I feel it was very appropriate to talk to you about this first, Kate. And I asked, like, which element would you like to talk about? Because I want to do an interview about each element of the creative ecosystems this season. And you picked air, the lived experience. And there's a very specific reason why you were inspired to talk about this. So I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah. So I think like the lived experience is like so much of who I am. And I've realized how much like experiences and environments end up affecting our creative ecosystems and our mental health and our creativity. So I wanted to talk about that just because it's been so imperative to the way I work, I think. And I'm sure so many of us can relate to that too. So I'm excited to chat about that
And
today.
you have a new environment.
I do. I just moved into a new apartment, and it's pretty much my dream apartment. I'm so happy to be here, and uh, I've lived here for 3 weeks, I think, and I can already feel like so much. I don't know how to say it, but I feel such a shift in my creativity and my mental health already. I do live with anxiety and depression, so I felt that both of those have improved, I guess, with my new environment.
Yes, that's a
And
great point as well. Like, we do want to talk about air today, but mental health is like the water in the ecosystem.
mhm,
And the whole point of the metaphor is that everything informs each other. The
mhm,
water, like, is in the air, it's in the clouds, it's in the humidity, but it's also in the earth, it's in
mhm.
pools of water and rivers and all of those things. So yeah, definitely
Yes.
as different elements come up, let's dig into that too. Sarah from the future here. I realized right after we recorded this interview that I never said how you could pre-order my book, which is pretty important. So if you are listening to this and you would like a copy of Discover Your Creative Ecosystem, there is a hardcover, ebook, and audiobook version, and you can find that at sarahschotz.com/pre-order. Or if you follow me on Instagram, it will be easily linked there. There's also a fully illustrated workbook companion if you're interested in journaling. So that's my little update for now. Let's get back to the interview. I think it might be interesting for listeners if they didn't hear the last episode, that having an apartment is kind of an extra big deal for you because for quite a while you were living like a nomadic life and you
Mhm,
didn't have like a really firm home base. So maybe you want to talk
mhm.
about that a little bit.
Yeah. The last couple of years I've lived at summer camps because I was working at camps through the off season as well. So I was living in a staff cabin or a camper, or when I lived at a camp in Kansas, I lived in this little cabin and just like this little one room cabin with my dog. Um, I've also done a lot of road trips the past couple of years, kind of living on the road a little bit. So, nomadic lifestyle is a pretty good way of putting that. And though I enjoyed the rootlessness of it, I also realized that I am not a rootless kind of person. And I need to have stability for myself. And I was really lacking that the past couple of years. So, having this new space helps me feel rooted, which I know Sarah relates to because root was our mutual word of the year for this year.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Love the metaphors of the roots as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, I had a train of thought and then I lost it.
It's okay.
Yes, it's kind of like all the pieces are coming together in my mind, and I'm looking at your weavings behind you. Actually, I
Mm-hmm,
forgot to mention that this is the very first video podcast episode. So if you're listening on the podcast app and you want to see our faces and you want to see Kate's space and her weavings, and I'm out in my studio, you can hop over to kindlecuriosity.com and find the links to that. But also your art is very much inspired by physical space as well. And maybe you can talk about when you rebranded as Lion Canyon Studio. Did I get that right?
Yeah, Lionheart Canyon. You
Lionheart.
got
I
it.
knew I was
You got
leaving something
it.
out of there.
That's
Lionheart
okay.
Canyon Studio. That a lot of your inspiration for that came from the natural world and from some
Mm-hmm,
places that you had visited. So I'd love to
mm-hmm.
hear about that piece.
Yeah, I rebranded in 2020 from Kateworks, which was my the birth of my or the original. Sorry for any weird faces I make in advance. I think pandemic has just made me perpetually unaware of the faces that I make.
Same, same.
Um, so yeah, I rebranded in 2020, and I that was kind of another like route that I realized that I needed because the rebrand really like solidified my creative path that I wanted to take. And a lot of the rebrand was um, creating like this mental space for myself of like a Lionheart Canyon. So I guess I haven't really talked about like even on I haven't really talked about like the story of we don't have to sorry, I'm just like rabbit holing my brain here.
Yeah, wherever your brain wants to go, it's all good.
Okay. Yeah, I lost my train of thought there too, but no, but rebranding really helped set my path, and yeah, I'm very much inspired by the creative aspect of nature. So seeing like textures and color stories of nature in national parks and public lands, and just like beautiful wild spaces, I'm very much inspired by. And I definitely pull that into my creative work, and the story behind my business too.
So, because it's right there in the title, like canyon, do you feel that your creative ecosystem would be a canyon?
I would say that's a pretty good, yeah, I would say so. Because I think like um, for a long time, I felt like I was in a creative and even just like mental desert, kind of like the way I see the desert is when you first look at it, it seems very dry and desolate and like not a lot of life. But then when you look closer, you see like juniper trees just rooting into the rocks, and you look in the like brain, but then you see like evidence of washes in the desert and water and animals and plants, and so you just have to look a little closer.
I love that. I actually saw an Instagram post specifically about that. I wish I could remember whose it was. I would link it. But they said before I lived here, I would have thought that this was like a dead piece of land in the photo. And they're like, I can see like 5 different plants and 2 different animals. It's all about knowing what to look at and seeing the signs of life that are there.
Yep. So I definitely see that in my work, and also just like my own inner self there.
So how do you find that translates into your weavings, and maybe like that first collection? I forgot the name of it, but it was very naturey.
Yes. My like debut collection for Lionheart Canyon Studio was called The Earth's Wild Bones Feel More Alive Here, which I actually named that was the title of the book that I released last year as well. It was just an ebook, but it was a collection of writing, original writing and collage work.
And it's beautiful.
Thank you.
I have a copy. And when you release a hardcover, I want a copy of that as well.
Yeah, and Sarah was the first person to put an order through for my book too. So I texted her immediately, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that people, you understand that as well, because your book is doing extremely well with.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of the launch right now. I'm kind of in that disbelief that people actually want to read it, even though people have been telling me they want to read it all along. It's a whole nother thing when you put your money where your mouth is and pre-order. So it's very exciting.
Get that. Yep.
I distracted you, but we were talking about the weaving collection of the same name.
Yes. And you didn't distract me at all. We're just candidly speaking. Yeah, that collection of weavings was very special to me because I was creating those out of that dry space. But then I started, as I was developing that collection, I was starting to feel like that life coming through. And I was in like a very depressed state in that year, like just coming out of like pretty severe like life changes with like the end of a relationship, and also moving 7 hours away 2 weeks before the
2020 pandemic. That was the perfect storm, really.
It was so crazy. So feeling that creativity coming through with an exciting rebrand and a new story to tell with my business and my work. It was really cool to see those weavings develop, and they actually, like, the titles of each one created a poem. So when I did put out my book, I used those titles to inspire a lot of the book too. And so it's like the Earth's wild bones feel alive, more alive here. And then it was essentially like a desert collection. So each one was inspired by elements of the desert.
Yes, I always love the colors and the textures that you choose.
Mm-hmm.
And that first collection were mostly on foraged sticks, I believe. I love that natural element in your work.
Yep.
And then the collection that you're making now is also inspired by nature. I see one of those pieces behind you.
Yes. This new collection I'm working on right now is like a garden collection. Basically, I am supposed to be putting out the collection later today. I haven't like taken pictures yet or named them, so I work well under pressure, I guess. So if it doesn't end up being today, it'll be tomorrow morning. So there's flexibility in that. And yeah, they are inspired by spring gardens. I have another one here I can show you. And these ones are all round weavings, which I just started making in the last couple of months. So that's been an exciting, like, little twist. And yeah, I wanted to experiment more with like texture and dimension on these. So I tried using more like bulky fibers and using knotting and layering. So there's a little more, it feels a little more sculptural, which is really fun to play with.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you wrote a little bit about on Instagram about this, about how you kind of felt like a new inspiration coming when you moved into your new space, some more creative energy.
Yeah, it's funny because like I am going to hopefully be putting out 7 weavings, and I didn't have any of them made a week ago. So I've made 6 weavings in the past couple of days. So I think Sarah and I have talked about this before, but I tend to like have these really long creative lulls where I can't seem to make anything, or I go full on 100% steamrolling ahead and churning out a bunch of work, which I need to figure out a more like sustainable practice with that and just have maybe more consistent work, which
I feel like follow your gut if your intuition is telling you that. But also I feel like I see that within myself as well. I don't know if it's kind of a neurodivergent tendency, but that kind of seeing that during the lulls that creativity is still working has really been a big reframe for me, that it kind of felt like, particularly with my books, that I was either working on it or I wasn't. It's very like a very black and white thought. And I've realized since then that it's much more complicated than that. Like there's all of this gray area of when I'm not actively working on it, but my brain is like churning it in the background, or I'm having different life experiences that help me look at it a different way. When I come back to my creative motherhood book, it's going to be a completely different book than the first draft. And it's going to be better for that. And so like kind of trusting our own internal like rhythms and not trying to force what we think like productivity looks like. That you probably, so, when you get that hyper focused and you're just like so excited to make pieces, you can make them so much more quickly than perhaps another artist who like does the incremental work. I just think that we kind of villainize that somewhat as a society, that's like the wrong way to do it. And I would really challenge us all to, what works for us. And that might be your best magic.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I don't think that's something I can change within myself, but then I just need to make sure, like, and I guess any of us who work that way just need to make sure that we're um, hosting that like gentleness in ourselves so we don't burn
Yes.
out.
Yes, like supporting that, like
Mhm.
recognizing, and you
Yeah.
know, try different things if you want to try like a more structured schedule or whatever. We can discover new ways of working. But when
Mhm.
we keep coming back to the same thing and it actually works in a way, and we just have like a internal judgment against us, perhaps we've been like criticized for that in the past, that just reframing it as this is actually the way I work best, and how can I support myself in this so I don't burn out, because that's kind of
Mhm.
the dark side of the coin of that. I
Mhm.
know from experience. I've been tried to be really careful with this book launch, because I tend, when I get really hyper focused on a project, I kind of forget about my body and my everything
Mhm.
else. That's part of why I wrote the book. um
Yeah.
that trying to remember all of those pieces, um yeah, it's not easy, but I think
Mhm.
it's worth doing.
Yeah. I feel like artists like us need like a little like pocket elf that reminds us to eat.
Yes,
So
yes.
I always forget to eat.
I
So,
actually, I don't know if it's set up on my phone right now, but one of the first things I did when I was diagnosed as autistic, the psychologist said, set a chime on your phone. And
mm.
so my phone, I think I need to turn it back on, but it's supposed to make a chime every hour just so that I know time is passing. Because
Ooh.
if I'm in something, I have no idea
Mhm.
what the time is. And also, a few years ago, I had like an actual alarm go off when it was time to eat. So,
That is
like,
so
maybe you can
smart.
teach your phone to be your pocket elf.
Mhm.
I haven't done that recently because everything is just so different with David,
Mhm.
that's not my particular struggle at this time. But back when I had all the time in the world,
Mhm.
that's what I would do, is I would forget to eat. I would forget. Now my chime, my pocket elf says, don't forget your kids at school, go pick him up.
Yeah. Yep.
10 out of 10 would recommend
I will
self-care chimes.
I will definitely do that.
Also,
Yes.
some people do the whole like stand up, move around.
Mhm.
Um, but I find when I'm in that creative flow, I don't necessarily want to do that.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the balance of like, what do I need, and how much can I let myself do this without it being harmful? And
Mhm.
like, at what point do I actually need to get up and like make a sandwich or a
Yeah.
cheese board or something?
Ooh, charcuterie is the best. Yeah. Um, yeah, Sage Biscuit is a really good little pocket elf as well.
Oh,
So,
yes.
yes, so she makes sure that we go outside for nice walks, which is really good for my creativity as well.
Yes, that is great as well. Because when before David was born, I actually was going on a walk twice a day. I was going in the morning, I was going at night. And then like in my third trimester, I got really bad chronic back pain. And it's 3 years later, and I'm just working through that, where I can actually like stand to cook or go on a walk without being in extreme pain, which has been hard. But
Mhm.
we've started trying to go on walks with David. This week in particular, we went out and like had a picnic lunch and a walk.
Oh,
And like, it's so inspiring to be outside and moving around in nature. Um, so yeah, definitely, that's part of the everyday lived experience as well. It's nice to have
definitely.
another person to remember to take care of. And David's just starting to talk, so he
Oh,
actually calls the park that we go to La Loop, the Loop.
oh, that's so
And so
cute.
he started asking to go to the park. So there have been days where Nathan and I were kind of like, we're just like in a fog,
Mhm.
in the parenting fog. And he's like, La Loop, let's go to the Loop. And then we end up
Oh,
going for a walk, and it's so great. And we're like, wow, thank
no.
you for asking for this. This is what we all needed, and we didn't think.
Yeah,
It's so
yeah,
great that Sage Biscuit can do that for you as well.
yes, yep, yeah,
Yeah, there's something really magic about getting outside and getting some fresh air and sunshine and
definitely.
seeing everything alive.
Yes, 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 yes. Ah, oh my gosh, my brain just whooped.
So I don't know if you know the artist Amie McNee.
Yeah. Yeah.
Inspired to Write on Instagram. I listened to her podcast, and she calls that phenomenon where the brain fog comes, you kind of can't make words. She calls it sprain brain, which I really love, like the little rhyme of that. I usually just end up saying like, oh, I can't make words. Oh, the sun is like, I put down the curtains to keep it from being right in my eyes, but my curtains are white, so it's still like really, really bright outside right now.
Yeah.
So we'll have a nice walk later after this.
Yes, I love it. It's kind of a gray and rainy day here today, so it's nice because all the flowers are starting to bloom, which is really,
we
really
had
good to
rain
see.
yesterday, and my little garden is coming to life, and we have one tiny strawberry that I hope will live to the last time we planted strawberries. The birds got them all. So I hope this one will ripen up before we can actually eat it. But it's nice. It's fun to see things coming to life after a long winter.
It's the brain sprain again for me. Drink some coffee.
I'm trying to think of what else we wanted to talk about. Do you want to talk about like Nebraska versus, where were you before? Kansas?
Yeah. So in Kansas, I lived in this really cool landscape. It was kind of like this little canyon that was tucked away in the plains of Kansas. It was like really cool rocks, which you would not like expect in the Midwest, probably. But yeah, my cabin was tucked away in the back of a canyon. So I think that also influenced the development of Lionheart Canyon too, like living in that environment. And it was right next to a state park too, which was really cool to walk around and just be in that nature. So even though I was in a really tough mental space, it was really good to be in that nature and get to explore that. But yeah, now I'm back in Omaha, and I did grow up here, so I don't know, like my plan for moving back here was to reconnect with my community and my family while I'm trying to like get into a better mental space. And a lot of last year was me trying to like get back into a healthier mental space. And then I also just like found myself tucking into this really awesome art community and friend community and re-exploring the city I grew up in and finding places that I love. And like my original plan was to be in Omaha for a year and then maybe move to like New Mexico or Arizona or Utah. But then I moved to a new apartment and I signed another lease to stay here for at least another year. And I really love it here. So
yeah, it's nice to have a physical support system. Like you can have your friends and family over the internet, and that's magic that you can talk to people all over the world. But there's something about actually having someone who can come over and help you when you need it, or just keep you company.
Definitely. Yeah, that's something I was lacking when I lived in Kansas, because I pretty much saw just like two people for almost a whole year. So that was crazy. But now I'm closer to people. So
yes, that can be an important part of your ecosystem.
Definitely. Yeah.
And because we tried to do this on Tuesday and then my microphone wasn't working, but I remember you texted me that day that you have like an exciting friend trip plan that we might talk about.
Yeah. So while we were having like some technical difficulties on Tuesday, one of my best friends called me like pretty much right when our interview would have started. So it ended up kind of being like a serendipitous moment because I was able to pick up the phone and like hear how excited she was. But she Her name is Paige, and we worked at camp together when I was in college, and then I ended up transferring to the same college. So I guess one of my like personality traits is that I'm really good at like figuring out when a place isn't serving me, and then I go somewhere new because I consistently move like pretty much every year. I've actually done that like every year since I was in college. So maybe this time I'll settle in somewhere. But anyways, Paige called me on Tuesday morning and at like 9 a.m. and she was like, Kate, how do you feel about going like on a backpacking trip through northern Minnesota? So it's the Superior Hiking Trail, and it's on the north shore of Minnesota, and it's like it's gorgeous. So I've never gone on like an actual backpacking trip, like an extended trip. So I'm really excited to do that. And I also just haven't really been on like a nature adventure in a while. I went camping with my sister last year in Illinois, which was really fun. But I've definitely been missing that aspect of travel and seeing like beautiful nature places. So like both of us are very much like just craving that sense of escape to nature and
adventure.
And I just like both of us are like kind of starting new life journeys. She just moved to Minnesota to make wine, and she was a chemist. Like she went to school for chemistry and she worked in a lab, and she and her husband just moved to Minnesota so she could start making wine. And I'm just like, I was so happy for her for pursuing something she really wanted to do. So yeah, both of us are just so appreciative of opportunities to have like that meditative space in nature. So I just know it's going to be an awesome experience for both of us, and I think healing too, because we both just need it.
I think we all need that right now after these last few years. I keep dreaming of the time that I can travel somewhere and have some reset time.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think we all need to put that on our can't think of the word. No words, but
it's okay.
On our list,
on our goals,
something we're working toward a little step at a time.
Yeah.
I'm thinking also about the scale of your work and the new giant loom that you have, and how your space kind of plays into the ability to use that as well.
Yeah, I am currently working on my biggest commission yet. It's for Ariel Bacon. So she is one of the original members of the Art Stew, which I'm sure we talked about the Art Stew.
Yeah, if you want to hear about
podcast.
The first episode we went on about that because that's how we connected.
Yes.
Yeah. So
and cool. I will be forever grateful for the Art Stew and Ray for putting all of that together.
It was such a cozy little community.
Yeah. So I'm making this 4-foot commission for Ari, and she's amazing. She's been doing so much healing herself, and I'm very, very proud of her and very happy that she and I have become such good friends, because she is definitely like the epitome of a Lionheart. So it's been really cool to be working on this commission for her. And she actually asked me to do it in the winter of 2020. So it's also been a long time coming. I think I was scared to work at that scale, so I just kept pushing it off a little bit. So thankfully she is the most graceful person, and she's like, no, it's going to happen when it's meant to happen. So I'm very grateful that she was in that similar mindset. And it ended up being perfect timing because I started it at my old apartment, and then I was able to mastermind a transport mode with my dad to my new place, because I thought I was going to have to rush to finish it before I moved, which just wouldn't have been good because I didn't want to rush it. And so it ended up being perfect timing because I will get to finish her weaving in my new home, which just feels really cool. So I'm happy to be finishing her weaving in my new space as the first like big piece.
Yes. And this, like, how big it, like, that isn't even the largest weaving you can do on that new loom, is it?
Nope. I can do them up to 6 feet wide.
Wow.
Which is taller than me. I'm only 5'3". So, and right now it's set to 4 foot high, but it can go up to 6 foot high. So I could
You need a step stool.
I need to buy one of those. But I've already enlisted the help of my friend Grace to help me snip it off the loom and probably help me with the finishing work because it's big.
Yes, I've been putting off one. It's actually hanging right up there. It's small, but it's been on the loom since, oh, honestly, I can't even remember when I finished it. I find that last part so scary and stressful. Like I'm going to ruin all of the work when I try to finish it.
Yeah, there's such a breath of eek when when you're snipping it off, because once the tension is gone, it reveals if your weaving is going to survive pretty much. I've definitely butchered a couple, not recently, because I've been weaving for like 8 years now, I think.
Yes.
So I've kind of learned how to like not be so terrified of that. So it'll come. But I still get
last time we
nervous.
talked, I actually hadn't done any weaving since like Girl Scouts. I think we weaved like coasters or something. And then it was actually our podcast episode that inspired me to buy a loom and try it out. And that's one of my new mediums that I've been loving. Fiber arts are very kid friendly. Not all creative mediums are. So I'm really thankful for you to bring that into my life at the time that I needed it.
Good. Yeah. Weaving is so meditative, which is why I probably like it.
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
So maybe we should have done this first. But do you want to try to describe your weavings, like your aesthetic or what your work looks like for someone who hasn't seen it yet? And of course, we'll link to Instagram and your website and everything.
Yeah. I guess like the voice I've adapted as a weaver is, I guess I usually work in very like muted earth tones. I'm trying to integrate more, not necessarily like bright colors, but just more, I'm trying to experiment more with like different, I don't know, I'm just trying to experiment more this year with color, not being scared of using like color. So that's been really fun. I kind of did that with this new collection a little bit. Definitely still muted tones there, but so yeah, I generally work in earth tones. I'm really scared of like bright colors. So I'm very inspired by nature, as we've talked about. So I'm drawn to like desert tones and lots of sage greens and like I've recently really enjoyed like the mauve color, like that purpley color. And then I guess I do a lot of like organic sort of not squiggles, that's a silly word. Just like organic free form sort of, but I have like kind of a pattern I follow. But it was interesting because an artist friend, I was talking to an artist friend about how I could like come up with a tie between my weaving work and my collage work, because I want things to feel like semi-consistent as an, or like just like have that like voice. And she ended up saying like she could see how the tears and the like the landscapes formed in my collages are similar to my weavings. I think you can kind of see it, but I wish I had a collage nearby.
Actually, I do.
But,
so let me
just. Oh, lovely.
I was just looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't I bring it down so everyone can benefit?
Yeah.
This is the one that I commissioned, and I got the frame. Geez, how do I hold it? Aha.
There you go.
Something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like just the like organic tears.
Yes, I see that as well.
Layers. With the... so I thought that was really cool, because it, like, even though it doesn't look like necessarily a landscape in my weavings, it kind of does look like there's like layered horizon lines, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So
yeah, I can see the connection there as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So
and like she said, or whoever you're speaking to, that the tears even look a little bit like textural, almost like mimicking the fiber.
Yeah.
It's funny how we can get really in our head about having like a creative voice when really our creative voice is us. And so it will come through. But sometimes it's like recognizing it so you can communicate it and accentuate it. Yeah.
Definitely.
Super cool. And then texture too. Like I'd love to hear you talk like nerd out about fibers.
Okay.
I haven't really dug into like all the different fibers I can weave with yet. But that's one of my favorite things about your pieces. Yeah. It looks so like cozy and warm.
Yeah, it's all of my weaver friends agree that it's like a very dangerous craft to get into.
Okay, I lost you about your back. So you were saying it's a dangerous
craft to get into because there are so many different fibers. I think my recent indulgence is Handspun art yarn. And exciting thing, I'm picking up a spinning wheel hopefully this weekend. So I will be able to make my own Handspun art yarn eventually. I'm going to have to learn before I can probably do it well, because it's kind of tricky, I've heard, to learn how to do it. But I'm really excited. So like this piece has some really beautiful handspun from Colleen. She does really beautiful art yarn. I can send Sarah her Instagram, and
we'll pop that into the show notes.
Yeah. So handspun art yarn is very cool. I love velvet and chiffon and sari silk. And there's just like such a wide variety of textures that
I love the cotton as well. It seems so simple, but that is that cotton behind you on the like the
fringe.
Yes,
this is cotton cord, and I really like that's like kind of my go-to for the fringe, and then I put other textures like in the fringe too. But yeah, there's like a ton of knotting that you can do to create even more texture. So yeah, I love how versatile weaving is in that regard. So yeah.
Yes. And we talked about this last time, but in case someone doesn't want to dig into the archives, but they're curious to try weaving, what would you suggest? Where would you suggest that they start?
So you like don't even have to buy a loom, you can make one. So like I've seen people like thrift old picture or just like thrift picture frames and then just like nail in nails, and there's like tutorials out on like Pinterest and Google that can show you how to make your own loom. You can even make one out of cardboard and just cut like little slats and do it that way. So yeah, you don't have to like invest a ton into it, and you don't have to start weaving with like the expensive fibers. It's totally okay to like use what you have, or because I started out with like just like yarn from Michael's and all of that. So you just start with what you have, and then I consider myself to be self-taught. I didn't like go to school for fiber, so I started weaving after I graduated from college, and I did take some online classes from Lindsay Campbell, who is Hello Hydrangea. She has really good
Okay, I'll be sure
beginners
to link
and
that.
yeah, she's awesome.
I think I probably went through that route as well when I was learning. Some very good educational content there.
Yeah, she's a really good teacher, and she's an awesome resource to get you going if you're wanting to weave. So yeah, I think like weaving is a super, there's not like, I don't know, it's just like a easy to learn craft, I would say. And I've seen a lot of people starting to do it, especially in the last like 2 or 3 years too, which has been really exciting to see, because I want people to like, I want people to weave. I'm thinking about hosting some classes here soon, maybe, because I'm inspired by my new space, and I'm like, I want people to come into my new space and have even more creativity here. So originally I didn't think that I wanted to teach, because I'm better at writing than I am talking sometimes. But I think I want to teach people now.
I really relate to that as well. I remember when I was
Yeah.
in undergrad, I was like, no, I never want to be a teacher. I definitely don't want to teach in university. And now like that's my main job. I'm the adjunct university instructor. And they're just, I don't know, as you get older, sometimes there comes this a little flip switch where you're like, okay, I get it now.
Yep.
I'm ready to try this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be great to like diversify those income streams as well as a working artist.
Yeah, that's something I've definitely been needing to do, especially as I'm making this more my full-time job with supplementary jobs here and there. So
yeah, so I think I have one more question related to like the lived experience. If you can think of anything else you wanted to talk about that we haven't covered, but kind of like what are the small little details that you have throughout your day that can contribute to like inspiration for your creativity, or like feeding your inner artist?
Yeah. So I've never really been a morning person. Like I definitely work better at night, but being in this new space has helped me like want to form an actual morning routine that lends to creativity, which is it's felt really good. So I have my new space is a south facing apartment, which is really nice, especially as an artist, because that means really good sunlight for pretty much all of the day. Um, so my creative mornings look like me and Sage Biscuit waking up, and then I open the blinds to our bedroom, and then I go throughout my entire apartment and open up all of the blinds so sunlight just like fills the entire space. And then I get coffee going, and then I pour myself a cup of coffee, and then I take Sage Biscuit for a walk. And then by the time I come back, the coffee's cooled down a little bit. And then I guess before I take Sage for a walk, I try to like set the space for when I come back. So I've been doing morning pages, which I know Sarah also does. So I make sure to set my journal out with my coffee so it's like ready to go when I come back from the walk. And I need to set like, because I can like sometimes like it can take me like an hour to get through my morning pages just because my brain just starts rabbit holing. So I need to start like doing like a 15-minute time and just like making myself just write.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, do you make yourself keep writing? Like, when do you stop writing and think, or do you yeah.
Yeah, that's usually what I do, but I should just like move through that.
I'm really mean to myself when I do it. Granted, I'm not in the habit of doing it every day right now because I'm severely sleep deprived, so I've prioritized sleep. But when I do journal, I'm really mean about just making myself keep writing.
I should do that.
And it goes a lot faster. But I think different things come up. Like I know we mentioned Amie of Inspired to Write. I think she takes a lot more time with hers. And so Julia Cameron definitely is like, you must keep writing, you must keep moving the pen. And so that's why I do it that way, because I'm very good at following rules. But I see from Amie that you can do it different ways, and it may not necessarily be the best for everyone. Those little daydreamy thoughts might actually help some people. But for anyone who feels like they don't have time to journal, I think I usually do mine in like 15 minutes, like really fast. So it's one of those things, there's no right or wrong way to do it, but that if you're wanting to like carve out a little more time, that can definitely help. And then you kind of capture those daydreamy thoughts that I don't know, I think I'm like avoiding journaling right now. I tend to do that when I'm like, it's something that I don't want to write about. Like if I'm having I'm not like having a hard time, but like I feel like sometimes there's a resistance when it's actually something that it would be helpful to write. But my brain is like, no, don't write that down. Like, no, we don't want to commit that to
more
paper.
Real if you write about it.
Yeah. So that it's interesting. So then, you do your journaling, then you go for a walk, come back, have your coffee. That's pretty much your morning routine.
Yeah. I want to start like doing yoga or a little workout too, just to, because I just want to get back into that. I haven't really like done that aside from taking Sage for walks. But I always feel better after I do like a little bit of yoga. So
I stretch the body muscles.
Yeah. So I've been trying to, if I have time before I like go to work at the shop, or if I have time, then I'll try to do it.
There's so many great YouTube videos now.
Yoga with Adriene is awesome. She's on YouTube and she has a lot of free stuff on there. So yeah, just trying to move a little bit and then create or go to work at my little part-time job at the shop. So yeah, I'm trying to, because the new neighborhood I live in is like one of my favorite neighborhoods in Omaha. It's called Dundee. And I like from my bedroom window, I can see one of my favorite little brunch spots. And so I'm starting to explore my neighborhood more too, which has been really creatively inspiring. Like part of Julia Cameron's morning pages and like the artist's way is artist dates. Is that what she calls
Yes,
artist
yes.
dates? So I'm starting to do that, and like there's a library within walking distance too. So last week,
Love a library.
yeah, not was it this week? I don't remember. It's Friday, so maybe it was this week, but a couple of days ago I walked to the library. But I got myself a library card and I'm just super stoked to check out whatever I want.
Yeah,
um,
that's like a great idea for anybody who's feeling kind of
mhm,
stuck in their
mhm,
community and it doesn't cost any money
mhm,
and like it's like a free resource to add that inspiration to your day.
mhm,
We've been really, really strict, kind of isolated with David. My family's
mhm.
high risk for COVID, and I just, until he gets vaccinated, I'm trying to minimize our social. But
Totally.
libraries are something I really miss.
Mhm,
And I'm really looking forward to being able to take him. Actually, I did my first edit on my book in the library right before COVID ended. And then I was just
oh,
so devastated that I lost my quiet working space. Of course, now I
mhm.
have this, so I can't
Yeah,
complain. But for that gap
yeah,
in the middle where I lost the library and I didn't have a quiet space in the house was really tough. So
totally.
yeah, thanks for mentioning that. Do you have you checked out yet the app where you can check out audiobooks from your local library?
I need to download it because the librarian was telling me all about it and it sounds so cool.
It is
And
so cool.
yeah,
I haven't used it in a while, so I don't know if my library card's expired because I haven't been, if I can still use it. But
mhm,
when David was a newborn, I was like checking out audiobooks all the time.
mhm,
And it's so great because audiobooks are really expensive. And
mhm,
they have ebooks too, I think. The app's
mhm,
called Libby for anybody who wants to check it out. But yeah, it's kind of like Audible for free. Like sometimes you have to be on a waiting list, but it depends on who in your area is waiting to read what book. And if you have
mhm.
access to multiple libraries, you can get on multiple waiting lists. Like it's really cool.
Yeah,
So yeah, definitely check that out.
for
But the
sure.
books that you checked out, like physical books, are also
Mhm,
really awesome, and are the ones I saw on Instagram were about weaving.
mhm. Yeah, it was really cool because I was just like searching through the shelves and I didn't really see any books about the history of weaving and like textile arts. But that's something I really wanted to learn more about because I do have an art history minor, so we did learn a little bit of like the history of fiber, but not too much. Um, and so I really want to know more about like the history and development of texture or of fiber arts. So I went up to the librarian and I was like, "Hi, do you have any books about the history of weaving or the history of fiber?" And she was like, "It's just so cool." And I forgot how cool libraries are. I felt like a little kid because she was like, "I don't think we have any at this location, but we have them at other locations, and then we can bring them to this library, and you can pick them up here." So I got an email a couple days later, and they were like, "We have 3 books about this for you." And so she just found all of these books for me, and then they just showed up.
That's
So,
great. That's a good
mhm,
reminder too for those of us that are
mhm,
kind of rusty of the outside world that you can Google your library's website and that will only tell you so much. But talking to a real librarian, like
yeah,
they can do the magic.
yeah. And she was so nice. Like it was so awesome talking to her. And she said that you can like check out free passes for like local museums or like the local like community or not community, it's called the Luritzen Gardens. So it's like um a really cool, I don't need to like talk too much about that, but it's just like this
But
really
yeah,
cool
there's
like
lots.
garden museum like and like the zoo, and like the zoo is really expensive, but it's a really cool zoo. Um and I'm just like libraries are so cool. I keep saying that.
Yeah, there's so many resources. It's not just books there. Like they're tapped into the community, like what you're saying. There's I think ours, you can check out like board games now. Like some libraries have library of things where you can check out like sewing machines and stuff. Like
that's really cool.
There's some really interesting innovation in the library world as everything becomes more digital. And then too, like just events and things like that. Like it's definitely a really good resource to kind of enrich your daily lived experience for your ecosystem.
Definitely.
So I just looked at the clock. We've been going for an hour. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, Kate, for joining me. Was there anything else? Let's tell people where to connect with you, where to find you on Instagram and online.
Yeah, I am on Instagram as Lionheart Canyon Studio. And then my website is lionheartcanyonstudio.com. So I always love connecting with people over there. Like I call my community of followers Lionhearts. So I feel like I've had a really cool little community built. So I always love welcoming new people in. So yeah, you can find me over there if you want to see some extra Sage Biscuit. She shows up a lot in my Instagram stories, but I also have an Instagram account for her, which I said I would never do, but then I did. But that's Sage Biscuit and Kate, if you want to follow that.
And your garden collection will probably be up by the time I finish my podcast magic. So I'll definitely link to that. And then Kate also has collages and her book. So make sure to check all of that out. So that's it for this episode. Thank you again, Kate, for joining me. And
thank you for having me.
We will see you around the internets.
Yes. Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Kindle Curiosity. If you have a friend that would enjoy this podcast, the best way that you can support this is to send a link directly to them. And instead of leaving a review, what I'd really love is to hear from you, what your thoughts are, what came up for you, what resonated in this episode. Podcasting can feel really one-sided and lonely, kind of like shouting into the ether, and it really helps me to know that there are people on the other side. So you can send that through Instagram or my email. Everything will be linked down below. And if you'd like to support the podcast further, you can pledge over on Patreon for extra perks like behind the scenes or even physical artwork in the mail. Or you could buy a copy of my book. So that's all. I'll see you over on Instagram, and I'd love hearing what you thought of this episode.